So what is pain? I mean, really, what is it? It sounds like such a simple question, right? But it's actually one of the biggest mysteries in all of philosophy and science. Is it just a signal, a feeling, something happening inside your brain? Well, today we're going to play detective. We're going to follow the clues laid out by the brilliant philosopher Hilary Putnam to try and crack the case of what a mental state, like pain, truly is.
All right, so here's our prime suspect. For a long time, a really popular theory was that pain is literally the same thing as a specific physical state in your brain. You know, you fire up a certain bundle of neurons in a very particular way and boom, that is pain. It sounds pretty plausible, doesn't it? But as you're about to see, this suspect might not hold up so well under interrogation.
But hang on. Before we can even start testing our main suspect, Hilary Putnam steps in and says, "Whoa, hold on, everybody." He argues we have to clear the crime scene of some major conceptual confusions first. He saw that philosophers were getting totally tangled up in their own language, making it pretty much impossible to even ask the right questions.
And here is Putnam's core frustration, right from the source. He's pointing out that his colleagues were mixing up two totally different things. The concept of something, our idea of it, how we talk about it, and the actual physical property of that thing out in the real world. They were acting like these two things had to be the same, which, as Putnam's about to show us, is a huge mistake.
To make this crystal clear, Putnam gives us this brilliant analogy with temperature. Okay, so the concept of temperature is just our feeling of hot or cold. It's what the thermometer measures, but the physical property of temperature, that's molecular kinetic energy. It's what heat actually is. The thing is, you can totally understand the concept of hot without knowing a single thing about physics. They're just not the same.
And that brings it right back to our investigation. Just because I know what it feels like to be in pain without knowing anything about my C fibers firing in my brain, well, that doesn't prove that pain isn't a brain state. All it proves is that the concept of pain is different from the concept of a brain state. So the crucial point here is we got to stop arguing about words and start looking for the best empirical hypothesis. What's the best explanation for what's really going on?
Okay, so with all that old confusion cleared away, Putnam brings a new and really powerful hypothesis to the table. He says, look, maybe pain isn't a brain state at all. Instead, what if pain is a functional state of an entire organism? This is a huge shift, because now we're not asking what pain is made of, we're asking what pain does.
So what on earth is a functional state? Well, it's a state that's defined by its role, by its job in a system. Think about it like a mousetrap. You can make a mousetrap out of wood, or plastic, or metal. The material doesn't matter one bit. What makes it a mousetrap is its function. Its job is to catch mice. That's the core idea of functionalism. And here it is. This is the analogy that made functionalism famous and so easy to grasp. A mental state, like being in pain, is like a piece of software. And the brain, or the whole nervous system, that's just the hardware that's running the software. And in theory, the same software can run on all different kinds of hardware. So how does this actually model pain? Well, think of it like a program is running. The pain program is a functional state that connects inputs to outputs. You get a sensory input, like a signal that your tissue is damaged. That triggers the internal state. That state then connects to a bunch of other states, like your belief that this is bad, and your desire to make it stop. And all of that produces a motor output, like wincing or pulling your hand away from a hot stove. It's all about the causal role it plays. Okay, so now we have our new suspect, functionalism. Let's put it in a lineup right next to the original one, the brain state theory. It is time to see if that old theory can really withstand some serious cross-examination.
Right, let's be super clear on what the brain state theory is claiming. It's not just saying that pain is some kind of brain state. No, it's saying that pain is one particular physical chemical state. This means that any creature anywhere in the entire universe that feels pain must have its brain in that exact same configuration. That is a very strong and very specific claim.
And this is where Putnam sets his trap. The theory makes this incredibly bold prediction. So what happens when we actually go out into the world and look at the evidence? What about all the different kinds of creatures that seem to feel pain?
Enter the octopus. This right here is Putnam's star witness against the brain state theory. The octopus is an incredibly intelligent creature. It's a mollusk. Its evolutionary path split off from ours hundreds of millions of years ago.
And this brings us to the killer argument, multiple realizability.
Think about it. Mammals feel pain, reptiles feel pain, octopuses almost certainly feel pain, but their brains are fundamentally different. They're built from different structures that evolved completely independently. So how could they all possibly share the exact same physical-chemical brain state? It just seems overwhelmingly unlikely that they do. It looks like the same pain program is being run on radically different hardware.
Putnam himself just says it perfectly. If we can find just one mental state, pain, hunger, you name it, that exists in two creatures this different, and if the underlying brain state is different, then the whole theory that a mental state is one specific brain state just collapses. Case closed.
So yeah, the brain state theory is in some serious trouble. But there was another suspect on the scene at the time, behaviorism. This theory argued that mental states aren't really internal things at all. They're just our tendencies, our dispositions to behave in certain ways. Pain is just the act of wincing and crying out.
Now, the difference here is absolutely crucial. For a behaviorist, it's all just inputs and outputs. You poke something, it yelps. That's it. But functionalism, on the other hand, insists on that all-important middle step, the internal state. The input causes an internal feeling, and that feeling is what causes the output.
And here is exactly why that middle step matters so much. Putnam asks us to imagine a super Spartan, someone who is in absolute agony but has trained themselves to show zero outward signs of it. A behaviorist would have to say this person isn't actually in pain because there's no pain behavior. But that seems obviously wrong, right? They still have the internal state, the feeling of pain. They just aren't showing it.
So, after our whole investigation, where do we land? The brain state theory seems way too biologically specific, is too chauvinistic. And behaviorism, well, it completely ignores our inner life. Functionalism emerges as the strongest candidate, the one left standing.
So let's just quickly summarize the case file. The brain state theory, it fails the octopus test. Behaviorism, it fails the super Spartan test. But functionalism seems to handle both of these problems beautifully. It allows for an internal state that actually feels like something, and it allows for that state to be realized in all sorts of different biological hardware.
The key insight, the real game changer here, is this powerful separation. By thinking about the mind as a functional organization, kind of like software, we can study its logic and its patterns completely independently of the specific messy biological hardware it just so happens to be running on at the moment.
And Putnam also points out that a really great theory doesn't just give you answers, it helps you stop asking the wrong questions. So instead of getting stuck on things like, okay, but what is this extra magical feeling called pain that just sort of comes along with the brain state, this theory says there is no extra thing. The pain is the function. Problem solved.
And that leaves us with this incredible, fascinating final thought. If mental states really are like software, defined by what they do and not what they're made of, it opens up a whole universe of possibilities. I mean, this is the philosophical foundation for artificial intelligence. So the question for us is, what other kinds of hardware, silicon chips, or something we haven't even dreamed of yet, could one day run the program that we call a mind?